Start today's program with Ken's brother Richard. Ken grew up in West Hartford, Connecticut, the youngest of three boys. Richard, the oldest, was Ken's idol, and Joe, his other brother, was his partner in mischief. Dick.
When I saw these roses this morning, I thought of our father. When I saw the roses this morning, I thought of our father. He loved roses. Claire, this is a perfect place. Ken was born in 1948. I was 5. My brother Joe was 2. Ken was about this big when he came home from the hospital. I remember. And I assure you, he did not have a mustache. Let me make that clear. This morning, driving over, I had this image of a baby with a mustache. He did not have a mustache. Our parents were hardworking, and they showed their love through work. My mother was a homemaker. My father was a plumber. He ran a small plumbing business from a shop behind our house. Men would come back and forth throughout the day. Kenny referred to these men as working men. This was important to Ken. In 1953, when Ken was 5, we moved out to the suburbs. Ken started kindergarten that fall. After about a week, there were 2 things that were clear. One, Kenny hated taking naps. He didn't like that at all. And the second thing was he had a crush on his teacher, Miss Groton. And over the years, she had come over repeatedly to have dinner with us. His preteen years were pretty typical. Little League, football, Cowboys and Indians. But some things you might not know. Using baseball cards and the statistics on the back of them and a pair of dice, Ken developed what we would now call virtual baseball. He kept meticulous records on players' performances and teams' performances. He spent hours doing this. Another thing, he served as water boy with a friend on the high school football team. This was when he was 11 years old or so. He was very gregarious, like my father. Loved people. In 1961, our parents put in a swimming pool. It was a beautiful pool, 20 by 40, 9.5 feet deep at the deep end. They couldn't swim. They did it for us. In high school, he lettered in football, basketball, and track each year, and captained all 3 sports in his senior year. Made the honor roll regularly, and he met this cute cheerleader. Over the decades, we remained close by the phone, and each year we returned to my parents' home for a week or 2. In the summer, it was friends, pools, the pool and family. In the winter, it was friends, family, and Italian cooking. Homemade Italian cooking. Our mother would start after Thanksgiving, and she would make homemade cheese raviolis, meatballs, homemade sauce, brajol, sausages, pasta. Incredible. I think this is why Kenny likes Italy so much. Desserts. Graham cracker pie, his favorite. Apple pie. Pumpkin pie, regatta pie. There'd be 4 or 5 pies on the table at dessert time. And the cookies, homemade cookies, 5 or 6 different kinds, including pizzelles, chocolate chip. And each cookie had to be kept in a separate container. And as Claire pointed out to me the other day, you better not get those cookies mixed up. My mother was very concerned of the aromas mixing. When we visited my parents' home, invariably we found time for walks. We would talk, we would update one another, we would just be together. They were great times. He never bragged. He was always modest. He was a safe and trusted friend. Ken, thanks for sharing part of your life with me. My life was so much richer for it. We couldn't have picked a finer brother. I love you. I love you, Ken.
Ken's New England roots went deep. He never lost his appreciation for fall. Every October for the last 30-something years, we went back and drove the back roads of New England, searching for peak foliage and gathering enough red, orange, and yellow leaves so that every student could choose a little piece of beauty when he came back to California. Every winter, weather conditions permitting, we ice skated on open ponds. No indoor rinks for Hans Brinker. You know, he did end up working with Olympic ice skaters, but they did assure me that it's very different than the kind of ice skating that we enjoy. An essential aspect of his roots were very close friendships that Ken maintained all his life with a core group of guys. Before I ask Jim Robinson to speak, I want to share something about those New England roots. I met Ken Ravizza on my first day of high school. High school started in 10th grade back then. So I was a sophomore, he was a junior. I was in 7th period study hall, and this folded note came my way. And I opened it up, and it said, "Hi, let me introduce myself. I'm Ken Ravizza." And then he quoted something from the school newspaper about him. And he said, "Would you like to go on a date Saturday night?" Oh my God. I was 15. I knew I was not ready for this big man on campus. So I said no. However, a year later, October 22nd, 1965, I went out with Ken. And there were many dates during high school. And there were many dates where Ken and I doubled with Jim Robinson and his girlfriend at the time. Now, I've warned Jim that he needs to protect Ken's sterling reputation. And he's not allowed to discuss any of those double dates, especially those at the drive-in. Jim?
Well put, Claire. I got my marching orders. That's great. Well, known Ken for many years, 61 years. So happened in 1957, the town of West Hartford, Connecticut decided they'd open their second high school. They needed a football coach. My father, being one, was hired and took over coaching for the Old Hall High School. The previous coach moved to the new school. But what's also very ironic where Dick was a terrific athlete, successful athlete at the opposing school, the new school. It turns out that after a few years they decided they realigned the schools a little off. So they wanted to make an adjustment. And so Ken's house went from being in the new school area to the old school area. And so as a result, it put us all together. We were, the line was supposed to go right between our houses and we were only one block apart. So Anyway, we first met in 1957, the fall, at what we'll call Duffy Memorial Stadium. It was a place where we played pee-wee football and pony football, and it brings back many memories. But in the fall of '57, that's where I met Ken, out on the football field. He was the big guy. So the other thing I want to say is that we've had a number of close friends that we've all stuck together through the years, even though we might have drifted in and out and that sort of thing. And I'm here representing the boys. Dick Osmick is here also, but the guys in the Connecticut area have supported him, encouraged him, and just enjoyed being who he was. The junior high days, when I reflect on that, it seems like it was just sports. Any kind of sport, football, baseball, basketball, he was there, and he, as such a leader that he was, he brought the crowds together. And so we have sustained our friendship with our group, which is now down to 6. Yeah, so. But as Dick mentioned, he was a tri-captain, a captain of 3 sports, although he did hate track. He ran the 880 and just hated it. It was a painful run for him. So I think he was very happy to move into baseball, which he always has played. We used to play many times during the summer. Then, so he was a big sports guy. Met Claire first day. He said he was going to check out the new young ladies as they moved in to high school, and he was right on it. He was right on it. And in the memorial pictures, I just wanted to highlight, there's an old picture of him from high school in his football uniform, number 80, with one of our other 8 friends here, Ben Witherell, who has unfortunately passed away. But also in the middle of that picture is my father, and every time I look at that, it brings back so many memories of being in the old school in the center of town, and it was more of a blue-collar kind of environment than anything else in the other school, I would say. But then on to Springfield College. He played football until his knee gave out, and gave out real bad. Real bad. He did get it corrected with some penalties, psychological penalties later. The marriage to Claire in West Hartford was beautiful, and ultimately led to Ken getting his first job at SUNY Brockport in the sports department, and he was into the kinesiology at that point. He hadn't quite evolved to his final position of being such a mentor to many athletes, and always encouraging them, always positive, and definitely was a stimulus to them to become the best they could. So over the years, we've seen each other regularly. Ken was such a verbal person. If you know him, he ended up doing exactly what he was best suited for, and that is being with people, advising them, and just enjoying the opportunity to be with such great athletes. So with that, I'll pass it back to you, Claire, and you're welcome.
Ken was the youngest of 3 boys, and my brother Jim was sandwiched among 5 girls. So they were a match made for each other. Ken gained a younger brother, and Jim finally had a brother, Jim Tehan.
Good morning. For those of you who read Ken's formal obituary, you learn not only am I his only brother-in-law, but also his adopted brother, as Claire just mentioned. You might ask why a guy with two brothers needs a third one. And, obviously, when I'm surrounded by five sisters, and he needed someone to influence that was younger, that would listen, it worked out. It was really arranged, somewhere in the universe. But of course, it wasn't arranged until Claire captured him, or vice versa. I am sure, though, that most of you have had the experience similar to my own, where Ken would introduce you to a new idea or perspective, encourage you to explore the idea further, and when you let him know that you tried his approach and that it worked, basically celebrate the accomplishment with him. And this was Ken's passion, to have an impact on everyone with whom he came in contact. I'd like to share with you a few examples of over the years to illustrate this cycle, and invite you at the same time to reflect upon an idea that he introduced to you, how he encouraged you, and the celebration that came when you accomplished that goal. As I was finishing junior high school, Ken encouraged me to try out for the high school football team. And like Jimmy and Ken and Ben and all those guys, I am not a natural athlete. But Ken persisted, and Claire was his girlfriend, so that helped. And so finally, I ended up going to spring practice out of 9th grade. And he and his senior buddies at the time were watching over me, telling me I'd never make it, but I did. And then, of course, he went on to college. I went on to Hell Week, up in the mountains on Burma Road with Frank Robinson. So it was, kind of full circle, and Frank's like, who is this guy? So anyway, surprisingly, I made it through that physical and mental torture and made the team. And really, for me, it was a life-changing experience because I gained confidence in myself, a new measure of discipline, and I stuck with the process for 3 years, and I improved every year. I was not a star, but I was competent. I got through, I did the tackles, and I made a few. So I also gained my first nickname from Ken, Chuck Chuck Jim Boy. A quick aside on nicknames. Ken had a talent for passing them out like candy. Sometimes they stuck, sometimes they did not. The other day, we tried to remember the list and we stopped at 10. Yeah. But to give you a flavor of how they changed for me over the years, they included Big Jim, Little Jim, Bobcat, Barracuda, that was the law school days, Jimmy Jono de Milano, and one of my favorites, Je ne pas Jim. For those of you who were recipients of these little treasures, know that I share that sense of inadequacy, that in over 50 years, the only two I came up with were Doc and Ken Boy. So imaginative. Moving on to the college days, I was a junior in college, passing my winters on the shore of Lake Erie, and decided to head out to LA for spring break. Ken and Claire introduced me to their favorite haunts and interests, including the beach, yoga, a movie in Hollywood by way of the House of Italy, stopping off at the La Brea Tar Pits, and quick stops at the Bodhi Tree, Cooper Donuts, and the Self-Realization Center. And that was all in 1 week. And this was the mid-'70s, and I noticed in the haze of the mid-'70s that, unlike Cleveland, My red beard and ponytail made no difference at all. So it was a no-brainer to return after college, and upon my arrival in the summer of '73, I was quickly introduced to the peak experience. Now, most of you know that the peak experience in sport is the basis of Ken's professional career. He refined and built upon his dissertation ideas to become a pioneer in the field of sports psychology in many different sports and at so many different levels, from high school to college to the pros. One of his most significant contributions to sport are the number of Olympic, college, and professional teams that now employ mental training specialists to help athletes deal with and develop routines to cope with the stress of performance. But in the summer of 1973, the peak experience occupied his life, all day, every day, as he put pen to paper to apply the peak experience concept developed by Abraham Maslow into a framework that explored the peak experience in sport. Now, before my arrival, Ken had done all the work, interviewing more than 100 athletes about their greatest moments and cataloging his interview impressions. His handwritten, color-coded indexing system was totally organized and all on 5x7 cards.
Oh my.
And so I became enmeshed in his world, helping to summarize the characteristics of the peak experience in sport, redrafting, editing, and rehashing the similarities and differences into a document that communicated the knowledge, experience, and passion of many different great athletes. I should mention that he wrote his dissertation in longhand, and I should also mention that the typist with the patience to retype the countless versions in academic format is here with us today.
Wow.
As payment for my services, I happily accepted free meals at the House of Italy, where for $1.85 you got minestrone, sausage and peppers, pasta, and spumoni ice cream. That was a deal. At the end of that process, after the formal defense of his ideas, I was very proud that he bestowed the little h of his PhD. Many of you can relate to the little awards that Ken passed out in everyday life, whether at the annual Thanksgiving football game or the Halloween party or any number of everyday events, including best costume, best camper, best body surfer, best traveler, best dressed, and of course, best uniform. For all of those so-called awards, Ken was the judge and jury. Like the time the Thanksgiving football game MVP went to an 80-year-old mom who took a tumble on the grass during the game. Oh, sure, he would ask for input, but at the end of the day, he bestowed the award, and really, no one objected. It was just part of the passion Ken had to encourage a newbie or someone struggling or just a person to be recognized on that day. For me, I will always be grateful to Ken for introducing me to new ideas and concepts, encouraging me to explore and seek out my potential, and when I achieve my own successes, to celebrate with me. And he taught me that there are so many ways to celebrate, from enjoying a Redondo sunrise to a Cuban cigar, and from recognizing a peer or a friend for a selfless act, to offering a toast to an assembled group. All of us miss him, and all of us carry him in our hearts. Hold on and treasure both of those feelings. After the ceremony, share some of those feelings with those you know or don't know. Thank you very much.
One of the things you should know about Nina is that she has inherited Ken's gift of teaching. To see her work with third graders at Cesar Chavez Elementary School is to know how lucky these children are to have her as their teacher. Nina is going to introduce a song that made a profound impact on Ken during his first year of teaching at SUNY Brockport. He was trying to fit into academia, and he was very uncomfortable because every day he put on a uniform of corduroys and button-down shirts. And walking home from campus one day, he heard this song by Graham Nash. And after that, forevermore, it was blue jeans and a polo shirt that became his signature. And he trusted himself to be exactly who he was. Nina?
All right, get my focal point. Got it. Breathe. Okay. My dad was 225% himself. That's what made him special. He was a total goofball at times, so playful we often referred to him as the youngest in the family. Even though he could hardly swim, he would body surf and take a pounding from the ocean waves. He was an avid gardener who would drive around the neighborhood looking for trash bags filled with leaves so he could mulch them for the garden. This activity would completely embarrass Monica and I in our early years. As I got older, I would enjoy partaking in the hunt. We would drive around with trash cans and rakes looking for large amounts of maple leaves. He did not care what others thought. He had a purpose and he would see it through. The only good job is a done job, he would say. If you have something to do, do it. My dad could be nothing but himself, wholeheartedly, deeply, and truly. I've heard the story of Brockport and the railroad tracks and falling to his knees and crying like a baby over the epiphany he had due to the song. However, one evening in San Francisco, we shared not only the story, but the song. We were making linguine with clams at my apartment. He loved that dish. The moment is sort of suspended outside of time and space. It could have been a moment shared between a father and a daughter, teacher to teacher, friend to friend. It was as if he was passing the message and the significance to me. He was amazed that in a matter of seconds, you could buy and listen to a song. iTunes pops. And that evening it was. We must have listened to that song on repeat for over an hour. Neither one of us minded. So enjoy. We can't be Ken, but we can be ourselves. Thanks.